28th of April 2019, a bit of a milestone happened for me. My micro business, myself as a freelancer consultant, became 3 years old, and I wanted to take the opportunity to, first of all, thank every single one of you who has helped me in some way, whether you've hired me or whether you've even just shared posts, subscribed to my email list, and just generally been there if I've ever had, I don't know, a bad day or something and I need a bit of a sounding board. So thank you very much for that. I've come here to a place called Stanton Park, which is in Swindon. That's where I live. It's about 5 minutes down the road, really, so I'm quite lucky. And I come here quite a lot, really, when I need to get out of the house to reflect. One of the things I tend to struggle with working for myself is the fact that I'm inside the same place all the time, whether that's an office building or working from home, and I really need to come out. So I often come here just for a walk, to gather my thoughts together and see a bit of the outdoors. So with everything in mind that I've just said, let's go for a walk around the park, see if I can find some other spots, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how my journey's been so far. As I was walking towards this next spot, I started to think about the fears, the anxieties and the excitement I had when I first started. So the reality is I started with just 30 days of work. And realistically at that time I thought, you know what, probably what's going to happen is I'm going to finish after 30 days, I won't be able to get any more work, and that'll be the end of it. I'll just have to wind the company up and bank those 30 days worth of invoices and income. But I've managed to carry on and gain both new clients and get repeat work through existing clients. It's not been easy. You have to constantly put yourself out there. You have to constantly keep in contact with people and remind them about who you are and what you do. And there are various different ways I have of doing that. Perhaps I'll get into that another day, and that's for another video. If you recall reading one of my earlier blogs when I first started during my first year of doing this, I wrote about that feeling of anxiety that you have in terms of where your next job or where your next piece of work is going to come from, and how that's always there. It doesn't really matter whether you've just signed a contract for 6 months, you've still got that bit of anxiety in terms of what's going to happen after that 6 months. And as that time period becomes shorter and your contract starts to come to an end, those fears of anxiety increase tenfold to the point where it can sometimes consume you. I don't think you ever really get over that feeling of anxiety in terms of where your next job's going to come from, but you do, or at least I have become more tolerant to them, and I've learned to live with them and deal with them a little bit easier as time goes by. I think there's two reasons for that. First of all, you have to take a logical view of things. I've been doing this now for 3 years. So for 3 years, I've managed exclusively as a freelancer to pay all my bills, put food on the table, and lead what I would call a reasonably comfortable lifestyle. Another reason I think the feelings of anxiety over where your next piece of work is going to come from has subsided somewhat is the longer that you do this, the more clients you end up getting, the more working relationships you have with people, and you kind of realize that after 3 years, you also have that working relationship and that experience of dealing with people who are known to you and people who can come back to you potentially and give you more work in the future. I was in a meeting the other day and a colleague of mine piped up, not about freelancing or anything like that. It was just a general work meeting. We were discussing priorities and what people are working on and what are the priorities for the next week. And he made the comment that work breeds work. And I'm a strong believer in that. The more work that you do doing this, the more work you will generate, because it will give you a chance to show people who you are and what you can do. A lot of my work has come from the work I've already done. So I'll go and do a project, hopefully I'll do a good job. I might be offered an extension, or I might be asked in the future if I could come back and do the same thing again at the same time. The best way of promoting myself, I have found, is to do a good job whenever possible. That's the best advert that I can find. I'm not sure if any of that's made sense, but I've spoken here a little bit, so let's walk around the park again and try and find another spot. On a couple of occasions, people have come to me and said, "Oh, Phil, you're very successful at what you do. You're making a success of this." And to be honest, I don't feel successful at all, really. I look at other people who have been doing this for longer, who I look up to and aspire to, and believe that they're successful, and I'm not. Equally, I suspect there are people who are not doing quite so well, and might look up to me and think, wow, I'd like to be able to do this full time like Phil does. So I think before you start to do this type of job and work for yourself, or indeed perhaps if you're starting any kind of business really, you kind of need to define what success looks like, because at the end of the day, it's all relative. You can look at large companies that 5 years ago were successful. They were successful large companies, and today they don't exist because they've gone bankrupt and into administration. So success doesn't necessarily last forever, and it means different things to different people. Success might mean that you're making a lot of money. Success might mean that you've got a lot more free time. Your work-life balance is better. Success might mean that you're just doing something that you enjoy, or success might mean all three. Success is just a word that's relative to different people, and it means different things. So before you get started being a freelancer, decide in advance what success looks like for you so that you can measure yourself on it. I think it's also important to try and look back and reflect and give yourself time to do so, as I'm trying to do today by walking around the park, to try and actually look at what you've achieved after a little while to see whether you're actually making a success of it and whether you're actually achieving the goals that you want to do. I feel grateful, I feel humble, I feel very, very lucky to have lasted for 3 years so far. I hope to carry on doing this. I hope to carry on and get more clients and learn more things, but you don't know. I'm a great believer of the phrase, and I don't know who said it, I'm sure there's some famous person that I need to thank for this quote, but you make your own luck in life. In other words, if you just decide you want to go self-employed, set up a website, sit back and hope your customers are going to come in, I don't really think that's going to work for you. I think there's enough work out there, but you do have to be proactive in going out there and looking for it. Another thing as well to bear in mind is that before you're anything, before you're a marketing consultant, before you're a website designer, before you're a public speaker, you're a salesman. That's your job primarily, because if you can't sell yourself and your services, no one's going to hire you. Once you have been hired, it's then up to you to demonstrate that you're worth the hire and use that skill set to try and generate repeat work and more custom from other people. This is a very popular spot, not just with me, but with everyone else as well. So I'm going to have to try and be quite quickly as I film this. Hopefully you can see this, but to the right-hand side of me, there's a bird table. In fact, a robin's just literally landed down right now to take a peck at some seeds, and someone's left some bird seed out. Not me, it was already here before I arrived. It's not been staged, I promise. But I often come to this bird table on a Saturday afternoon or sometimes a Sunday afternoon when I'm suffering from that cabin fever, having worked inside buildings all day, including my own flat. And I'll take a camera and a long lens and I'll try and snap some birds as they're feeding and flying by. I find that kind of quite therapeutic, and I guess having the camera has helped me get out of the flood a bit more. Another thing I've learned over the last 3 years is that you have to try and push yourself and also adapt. I hate organisations that try and use the term push yourself out of your comfort zone. I'm not sure there's anything wrong with staying in your comfort zone if you're happy and you're able to sustain yourself, earn a living, and you're living a relatively peaceful, stress-free life. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. But I think sometimes you have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone if you do want to achieve any goals that you have, and particularly perhaps if you're self-employed. And there's probably no better example than right now of me pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I am not comfortable at all being on camera. I hate the idea. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I sound. I don't think I'm particularly photogenic, and I generally try and avoid being in front of a camera, whether that's still or video, whenever possible. And in fact, this particular video is the first that I've made of myself, and basically just sending it out for all and sundry to see and comment on. So that's an example of someone pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. I also even found writing a blog pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I can write, that's fine, and I'm comfortable writing articles for press, magazines. I've done that before, not a problem at all. But that's different when you're writing a documentary piece. When you're writing a blog and you're both promoting yourself but also expressing very honestly how things are going, the good and the bad, that can be quite embarrassing. And I'm also very shy about trying to promote myself. I need to. You have to. Otherwise, no one's going to hear of you. No one's going to hire you. And it's something that I need to get better at. And it's something that I need to do to push myself out of my comfort zone. So pushing yourself out of the comfort zone is something that I've learned over the last 3 years that I've had to do. And I think if you want to make any kind of, when I say success, of course, relative success, as we spoke about earlier, if you want to make any kind of success of it, then you're just going to have to live with it and force yourself to, as I'm doing now. So we're back to the same place where we started, and that's because my walk around the park's now coming to an end. We're almost at the car park. I hope you found this video both insightful and useful in terms of how I've found my last 3 years as a freelancer. If you think there's anything in here that could benefit anyone that's either doing this or someone who's planning to do this that's starting out, by all means do feel free to send them a link to the video or tag them in any posts, etc. And as I say, I'm more than happy to have a conversation and share my knowledge in the way I do things with them. And I recommend they do the same with a lot of other people as well to get a balanced view to help them out. That's absolutely no problem at all. Whether or not I do any more videos like this does depend largely upon yourselves. My plan is really to check the comments section probably after about a month or so. And if I've got the time and I see any common themes in those comments, then I'll try and make the next video on those themes. I mean, probably the one theme that, or the one question that I get asked the most is, how do I find my work? I get asked that all the time. So yeah, maybe I'll make a video on that subject. If you'd like to see that, then let me know. If you'd like to see something on another subject, also let me know. That's it from me. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.